Can you talk a little bit about the experience of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro?
Absolutely. It truly was life-changing for me. It was the first time that I made a commitment to something, that I set the goal, put in the work, and really took action to believe in myself. And it was a fluke that it kind of happened, actually. It wasn't a bucket list item. It was
No?
no. I'm not a climber for sure. But it was a friend of ours had done it the previous year. He was raising funds for the Livestrong Foundation, and he called my husband and said, they're going to do it again next year. Would you be interested in going? And my husband basically said, 1, 2, 3, no, thank you. Why don't you call Simone?
Know your audience, I guess, huh?
Yes. And so he called me, and I said yes, because I really needed to get out of my comfort zone. I'm a big believer in doing the things that you think that you can't.
Hey, welcome to Everything's Messy podcast, where we celebrate the beautiful but messy life experiences that most, if not all, people go through. Get ready to embark on an exciting journey through the raw and unfiltered stories of everyday people. Here, we dive into messy realities of life, from making messy mistakes to triumphs and everything in between. Are you sensing a theme? That's right, it's messy. But this just isn't about the mess. It's about finding strength and resilience in the midst of it all. We'll explore how health, fitness, and wellness play a crucial role in navigating life's twists and very messy turns. And we'll challenge conventional systems, because sometimes the most unconventional paths lead to the greatest discoveries. Join us as we embrace the messy, beautiful, and endlessly fascinating stories. Each episode is a testament to the power of our messy journeys and the beauty that emerges from the mess. So grab your favorite beverage, coffee, sparkling water, whatever it may be, and prepare to be inspired. Are you ready? Let's get messy. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Everything's Messy podcast. I am your messy host, Sarah Wilson. Joining me today, I have Simone Knego, author of The Extraordinary Unordinary You, a motivational speaker, serial entrepreneur, mom of 6, and she's climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Welcome, Simone.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
That's a mouthful to get all the accolades out.
Sounds messy, right?
It's messy. Well, and I feel like I probably didn't do it justice. I think there's probably so much more behind all of that. So, welcome. Where are you joining us from?
I'm in Sarasota, Florida.
Florida. Okay. All right. All right. Well, at Everything's Messy podcast, we always start with your messy story. So why don't you jump off and tell us how that began?
So my story began, my whole life, I mean, all parts of my story that where I am now began when I was in high school. I had a very abusive boyfriend, and mentally and a bit physically as well, and really lost every part of my self-esteem, self-love. Like, it just wasn't there. Didn't respect myself. And that kind of spiraled into years of self-doubt. And really that moment in time kind of led me to where I am today, where, I mean, that was all part of Kilimanjaro and everything else. That's what built me back up. It took me a long time to get there. I mean, it was messy for a long time. I would look in the mirror and not respect my reflection. I really struggled for years. And even with 6 kids, I was still messy. I was still a mess. And
well, that's messy in and of itself.
Right. Yes.
I have 3, so I can't imagine 6.
Yeah, I love having 6 kids. It is complete chaos. And what's been really great for me as a mom is being able to talk openly and honestly about the things that I went through. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because they'll say, I can't believe you ever went through something like that. I just can't imagine it now. And I'm like, that's the whole point. It's that you can work through whatever problems that you have and kind of change your life. And that's kind of what I did.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of us, we go on this journey because we started with all this mess, no matter, because I feel like everyone has a mess, and it's really, you have to sit through that mess, but then how are you starting to climb your way out of the mess? What does your journey look like? And you've just really taken it and just, put on your bootstraps, and we're like, This is what we're doing. So can you talk a little bit about the experience of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro?
Absolutely. It truly was life-changing for me. It was the first time that I made a commitment to something, that I set the goal, put in the work, and really took action to believe in myself. And it was a fluke that it kind of happened, actually. It wasn't a bucket list item. It was
No?
no. I'm not a climber for sure, but it was a friend of ours had done it the previous year. He was raising funds for the Livestrong Foundation, and he called my husband and said, they're going to do it again next year. Would you be interested in going? And my husband basically said, 1, 2, 3, no, thank you. Why don't you call Simone?
Know your audience, I guess, huh?
Yes. And so he called me, and I said yes, because I really needed to get out of my comfort zone. I'm a big believer in doing the things that you think that you can't.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did. I trained for 6 months. That's all the time I had. But
Wow,
every day I was
pretty
in the
short
gym.
amount of time, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Every day I was in the gym. I was wearing a mask before it was fashionable to wear a mask. I had this elevation training mask that had a gorilla face on it that I would wear in the gym every day, and really got myself in shape, and both mentally and physically. So
Definitely a mental hurdle too, I would imagine.
Oh, it's huge, especially, when we think about how we talk to ourselves and we think about how other people talk to us. When the people around you, again, because I wasn't a climber at the time, I had multiple people say to me or ask me, do you really think you're going to make it to the top? Oh, no, I think I'm going to make it halfway. That's why I'm doing it.
Oh,
It's just what people will say, right?
That's self-doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I've realized, it's when people are struggling with themselves, they a lot of times ask questions that might put it onto you, and you have to be strong enough to just say, yeah, I'm going to make it to the top. That's why I'm doing it.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. I'm training only to get to halfway. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you do in the gym with that? Was the stair climb? Like what exercises would you do to get prepared for it?
So I kind of did everything. A lot of it was going on the treadmill as high of an incline as I could. And then I did boxing, wearing the mask, because again, it was just trying to build my lung capacity. And that works really well. I mean, when you get onto the mountain, it's really about the elevation change and how your body reacts chemically to it. And luckily I did pretty good. So I didn't really have too many issues when we got to the higher elevations. I mean, yes, it's hard to breathe and it's hard to move one foot in front of the other.
Sure.
But there were other people, definitely their oxygen levels dropped really low. But everybody in our team made it. So there were 16 of us, and I didn't know anybody when I got there. I got paired up with a really good friend now. So we shared a room together at the hotel the first night, and then we shared a tent together on the mountain.
I was going to say those bonds of the physicality, they last because you go through it, and that's you remember how hard it was.
Yeah, for sure. And really, when you think about it, I mean, going with people that you don't know, we talk about leadership a lot with our families. We talk about leadership at work, but leadership on the mountain is a completely different thing. And it was really interesting to see people's styles and figure out how to work with everyone to make sure that everybody was successful, however that meant, whatever that meant, that if we all made it to the top together, we all made it to the top. Some people didn't make it, but we all made it. We all made it to the top, and, really created this community that I never expected to have. So it was
amazing.
And it was, for me, it was life-changing because my whole attitude changed after that. And it really changed to really think about how when we accomplish things that we think that we can't, right? When we try the things that we think we can't, that it opens a whole new world. And it's not about what anybody else thinks. It's about what we think about ourselves, and respecting ourselves and embracing exactly who we are.
What was the total time that it took you to climb?
So it was 5 days up, 2 days down. You start outside of the national park in terms of the hike itself. So you're nowhere near the mountain when you first start. And I want to say that it was almost 90 miles of walking, that it was really, it was huge. And it was incredible. I mean, we started at just a few thousand feet, and the top is 19,341 feet.
That's incredible. That's truly amazing. Congratulations on that accomplishment.
Thank you.
And so you talk about mindset, and you said it was totally life-changing. Is it life-changing in a way that now you're open to whatever challenge may come, and you just have a aggressive attitude towards it? Or was it just seeing the world differently of like, hey, look what I did?
I think it's a combination. I mean, I think before I would think of any kind of bump in the road as a complete obstacle instead of now looking at it as like, okay, what did I learn from that and move forward? Because I think every time, I mean, in my past, like I would try something and I'd be like, I'm not gonna be successful at that. I'm just not gonna keep trying. And now it's completely different. It's like, okay, what happens if I fail? I learn from it and figure out what I want to do next. And I think that's been really helpful on my journey to make sure that I'm not stuck and that my kids see that I'm not stuck. I mean, again, with 6 kids, like it's about really being the mentor for them and the role model that if you want to do something, you can do it. As long as you're being the good in the world. I mean, I'm not telling you to go out there and do horrible things, but
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But really, when you prioritize yourself, and I'm not saying in front of your kids, but you have to take time for yourself to make sure that you can be the best person that you can be so that they can see that and they can do the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we often on this show advocate for moms to have self-care. And I know my own story was just this overwhelming guilt that I had if I wanted to do anything for myself. And that mom guilt is a beast. Do you struggle with any of that?
So I don't struggle with that anymore. I mean, I used to really struggle with it. And I remember even after I climbed Kilimanjaro, I was actually on a podcast and the host said to me, don't you think leaving your kids for 10 days is selfish? And I was like, I've never thought of self-care as selfish. So no, I don't. Again, we have to, and for my kids to see that I did something like that when that was not at all in my wheelhouse, I think that was even bigger, right?
I was going to say, they probably think you're superwoman. Like
they're
that's
like, what are you going to do next? I'm like, I'm going to sit on the couch and watch a movie. That's what I'm going to do.
No, I'm kind of appalled the podcast host asked you that, but for me, I did think it was selfish, but I would never have put that on somebody else. So that's crazy. And I've overcome that for sure. But yeah, I can't even imagine being asked that. I hope you put them in their place.
Oh, I did. But I think it goes back to when people feel that about themselves. So she probably felt that everything that she did for herself was taking time away from her kids. Therefore, that was selfish, which is so far from the truth because we are all better humans when we have a little bit of time for ourselves, when we really take that self-care and take it to the next level.
And I always say, if we take care of ourselves, we're a better caretaker for it. We come back inspired, motivated, ready to what are we going to put out now for our children? And this whole experience that you had, I just can't even imagine what they probably think you're a super mom for sure.
Well, they did for probably about, 2 minutes. And then they were like,
That's old news.
Where's my chicken nuggets?
So I love on your website, you have this thing written, regardless of my audience, I have learned that what we do matters. Why did you write that? What does that say to you?
Well, it's how we act when nobody's watching, right? Like, I think a lot of times that we think of people do things for show. And I'm a big believer in being true to yourself and being kind, being patient, being empathetic, whatever that the other person needs in that moment. And I don't care if anybody's watching, right? I mean, that's not the point, is that doing something for someone just because you want to, not because you feel like you're going to get kudos for doing something.
Sure. Yeah, I like that. So did you climb first and then write the book, or did the book come first?
I climbed first. Really, it was again, pivotal moment for me. Also never realized I had a story to tell, right? So that all became part of it, is understanding that we all have a story to share, and that by sharing our ups, downs, everything, then it really can help other people. And if you can help one other person, then you have changed the world.
I say that all the time on this show. And I think for me, the relatability to someone and having that community of like, I'm not alone. Oh, somebody else is experiencing that. Oh, I did feel like that. And you just create this bond of, someone else is going through another mess of some kind, and we can relate to that.
Yeah. And I mean, most of my friends will say, well, I can't relate to the 6 kids thing, but
that's true.
And what's also funny is that people will say to me, ooh, I only have 2 kids, and, so I can't complain to you. And I'm like, sure you can. Like, again, for people to understand that whatever their problems are in the moment, whatever their struggles are, they're valid, right?
Sure.
So doesn't matter that I have 6 kids. I understand when there's one kid at home, what a struggle it is. So I always encourage people, just share what you're going through, because you never know how you can inspire or help someone else.
Yeah, no, I like that. So the title of the book, The Extraordinary Unordinary You. So I kind of get this theme where you didn't think you had something to offer when it turns out you had so much to offer.
I used to say that I was just an ordinary girl, just Rob's wife, just a stay-at-home mom, using just to justify my life. And we're not just anyone. We're not just anything. We're not just someone's wife. We are unique, each and every one of us. And we change the world with the things that we do every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you talk about even if it's the, routine or the same thing, those small habits or whatever you're doing every day can really change someone's life or something about someone, just doing those small things. And I think that's really, really cool to recognize it like that.
Yeah, because we don't think about that. I mean, that's an overgeneralization. Excuse me. We usually think about the big celebrities and the big philanthropists and the difference that they're making in the world. But it's these little things that we do every day that really are life-changing for other people. You know how many people are struggling and they don't think that they're being seen? And then someone asks them, how's your day going? What are you doing today? And that totally changes everything. Something as simple as that. Buying a cup of coffee for someone. Sure. I can tell you that's happened to me like 3 times in my life. And I will remember every single one of those times, because that person didn't have to do that. That person doesn't have to give you a compliment. They chose to do that. And I feel like that really does impact other people.
Definitely. Yeah, I always operate. It's not what you say, it's how you make someone feel. And that can go negative or positive, but that's really trying to bring in the positive of words are words, and that's great. But how did you make somebody feel? What were your actions towards that? And I think that's incredible to point out.
I love that. I love that, because I always say that it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. So I think it's a little bit similar, but it is how you say it is how that person's going to feel. So I think I like the way you say it better.
Yeah. You can be mad and say something, but if you make them feel, a little, not defeated or not kicking them when they're down, and you can still get your point across, that's, that might help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the book writing process in and of itself, what did you think of the whole process?
So I started off my career as a CPA. That's what I went to school for. I have a master's in accounting. And it was actually kind of funny when I said to my husband that I was going to write a book. He's like, can't wait to read it. I mean, he's been really supportive. We've been married 31 years. He's always been supportive, but he's like, isn't math your thing? I was like, you know what? I love to tell stories, and that's how I'm going to approach it. And I really wrote almost like I talk. So my friends that have read it will say that it's like I'm inside their head because they can hear me saying words.
Yeah. Authentically you then. No fillers, no trying to fluff it up more than it is, just authentically speaking your truth.
Yeah. And, it was a really interesting process. I wrote a lot of it over the time when we were home for COVID. So good or bad, I think it was kind of good for me, actually, because all the kids came home from whatever school they were at, and it brought up a lot of old stories, a lot of really good memories, a lot of really tough things. And it was all stuff that I was like, okay, I want to write about that. I'm going to put that in there. And it took about 9 months. It was like birthing a baby. It took about 9 months to get it done. And what I realized after writing a book, it's not the writing the book that's the hard part. It's getting it out there to the world. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
So you can write the best book in the world, but if you don't have the marketing strategy. So I'm working on my second book right now, and I'm going to have a different strategy moving forward.
It's something you had to learn on the journey, I guess.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And it's funny. I've heard a lot of authors say the same thing, is that they're writing the book. They were like, okay, I was down with writing the book, like that I was ready for. What I wasn't ready for was the whole, not just the commitment, but everything you needed to do constantly to try to get people to know about it. And it's really hard with, like, if you're thinking like social media is going to be your strategy, the algorithms prevent anything from getting out there. So it's, you got to hustle.
Well, it sounds like you know how to do that for sure. You can get up that mountain. I'm sure this doesn't seem like anything. So you've also been a TEDx speaker. How many times have you done that?
So I've done 2 TEDx talks, and I'm actually pitching for a third one right now. So we'll see how that goes. And I love to speak. I love getting up on stages. I do keynotes and
How can I ask
workshops.
how many times it took for the first TEDx talk to garner? I know you have to submit a lot to get picked up. How many times do you have to do it?
So the first one was pretty quick. The second one was also pretty quick. The third one is not quick.
No.
The third one, I've kind of changed it a few times and I want to be more selective on where I speak since I've done it a couple times. And so it just takes longer, and that's okay. That's okay. I have plenty of other stuff that I'm doing at the same time, but I really trying to bring everything back into my brand, which is all talking about confidence, building confidence from the inside out, and self-respect, self-worth. So it's all in that realm.
Yeah. Do you find the audience is men and women, or mostly women?
Mostly women. I really target women. So I created what's called the REAL method, which is, this is all about learning, respect your reflection, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and love the woman in the mirror.
Yeah,
So, and I really think that as women, we don't always ask ourselves what we want, right? We're giving for everyone else. And I can tell you that I've spoken with so many women where I say, so what would you want to do? Well, I have no idea. I've never thought about that before.
They've never even given themselves permission to even think about it.
Yeah. And so really strategies to really start thinking about that, because I know I have a lot of friends who are stay-at-home moms and their kids are slowly leaving the house and the last one's about to go off to college and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do because their whole life has been centered around their children, which is fantastic. I'm not
sure. Yeah.
But it's figuring out, okay, you don't have to go to work. You don't have to, but find something that fills your cup. So whether it's volunteer work, whether it's playing pickleball, whatever it is, find something that you're doing for you so that when everybody else is out of the house, that you're not just thinking, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't even know what I want. I don't know what I like, because I've never tried anything because I was so busy taking care of everyone else.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I love to see other women trying to change that narrative, because I feel like we're almost programmed to just put ourselves at the bottom, and almost automatically. Like, it's not like we think, okay, now we go to the bottom, we just do it, and we don't even think about it.
Right. I have a podcast with my 21-year-old daughter called the Daughter Dearest podcast.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that.
Yeah. We were having dinner the other night, just the two of us. And I have this habit of if she's done eating or whatever, and she's like, can I have a bite? And I always say, oh, you can have the rest of it. Like, and she's like, why are you always giving me your food? Like, in a way that, like, don't be a martyr. Like, this is your food. Sure, I'll take a bite, but don't give it away. Like, keep it for yourself. You ordered it. You wanted it. And it's so funny because I think it like kind of spreads out to other parts of life. It's not just giving away our meal, right? It's giving away all parts of us to make sure that our kids are happy, that our husband's happy. And
sure.
And we have to take some of that back so that we're happy too.
Definitely. Yeah. And I don't even think it's in a resentful way. No. We are just automatically, here it is. And we don't think twice, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's really interesting. My mom, she is turning 85 this year, and she grew up in rural Pennsylvania on a farm. Her mom had a 6th grade education. Her dad worked in the coal mines and a local brewery. And she realized early on that she wanted to go to college. She ended up moving in with another family and helping to raise their kids, saved up money, got into college, finished college, got into medical school.
Wow.
And that was in 1961. She graduated medical school in 1965. There were 5 women in her medical school class, and she had to fight and fight and fight and fight just to get through, just to get equal pay. And we're talking like, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s, they were fighting for equal pay still. And still women are today. It's not that it is equal across the board, but kind of just watching her progression and how much she doubted herself for so many years. I think that's part of the reason that this is so important for me to help.
Sort of ingrained in you.
Yeah. And I want to help other women realize what they're capable of. And my daughters, I want to raise strong, kind, compassionate humans, my sons as well. Like, I want them all to be good.
All to be.
Ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Good humans.
And I talk about that a lot, especially on my own self-care journey. I have learned that as my daughter, I have 2 daughters and a son, they now see me do these things. And so I hope that it instills them that they also will put that into their life because they are worth it. They are important enough to do that. And my son will see this is okay. This is what a woman does, and will be able to support that as well.
And it's a reminder that they see all things that we do. So although
I will say, we always say they learn by watching, but none of them clean the house, and they watch me do that all the time.
Because they know they don't have to. So I will tell you that if I go to my kids' houses, like my oldest son, he has his own house now. My daughters, when they're in school, their place is completely clean. They come home and it's like, where did you even find this stuff to mess up the house with? I have no idea. Like, but it is across the board. But really talking about how, we're an example for our children. And there was a time when I really struggled, just really looking in the mirror, wasn't comfortable in my skin, just no matter what. I was a person who gained a lot of weight, lost weight, gained a lot of weight, lost weight. And I was getting ready for an event, and I had all kinds of negative self-talk going on. And I'm literally trying to zip up my pants, and it's not going well. And so my daughter walks in. I'm literally on this banter of like, I can't believe you did this again. You gained weight. You look ridiculous. Why are you even going to this? And my daughter walks in and she's like, you need to stop. You need to stop saying stuff like this to yourself. She's like, how do you expect me to love my body when you don't even like your own? And I was like, oof,
ouch.
Okay, there we go. That was a reality check. And that's really kind of started me on the, okay, you got to stop. You got to understand that you are unique, and the weight isn't what defines you. This isn't what defines you. What defines you is how you are as a human in the world. When you're done in this life, like, what do you want people to remember you for? Complaining about like something, complaining about that you didn't have enough weight, or you gained too much weight, or did you want people to remember you because, wow, she was really inspiring. She motivated me to do this. She helped me with that. She always talked about these things. And not only did she talk about them, she acted on them. So that's the goal with these. No, that's the goal with these kids.
Definitely. Yeah. I've often heard that when you ask a man, what do they think is sexy about a woman? And then in our head, we're going down the list of like physical things and whatever, when in reality, from what I've heard, it's confidence. It's how you carry yourself. It's how you feel about yourself. That comes out of you, and that is, expressed to the world, and that's what they see. So,
and I think
I'm going to choose to believe that.
Yeah, no, I'm going to agree with you. I think that, you see it all the time that someone is, and for a long time, I would look at other women and think like, wow, they are so confident. Like, how do I get that? How do I do that? Right. And I do think that it is attractive for men to be around a woman. And we're not talking arrogance. We're talking about someone that feels comfortable in their skin, that they'll wear whatever they want to wear because they look good for themselves. They don't care what anybody else is thinking about them.
Exactly. So I want to circle back really quick. We had touched on your podcast just a little bit. So what kind of things are you and your daughter talking about?
We talk about all things women. We talk about really building confidence. We talk about self-respect. We talk about funny things. We did our last podcast episode was the everyday annoyances, like the things that drive us crazy, like buying a new thing of raspberries and opening it up and it's moldy in the middle. Like, come on.
Yeah. Do you find that you and her are mostly on the same page, or is there generational differences with different topics?
Yeah, there's definitely generational differences. And it's really that I find really to be interesting. Like sometimes, we'll be talking about a subject, or we'll have a guest on and she'll be like, well, I don't really agree, or I don't even see it that way because I haven't had that experience yet. I'm too young to really have an appropriate response to that. This is what I think, but I have no idea yet. So
that's pretty good really self-awareness though.
Yeah. Well, gosh, we talk all the time. So, but it is really fun to have those different perspectives. I'm I just turned 52 and she's 21. So, and out of the 6 kids, she would be the only one that would be willing to have a podcast with me. And it's great. It's really, she loves talking and she loves helping other people. Not that my other kids don't, they just don't love the talking on camera for sure. They love to talk. Trust me. They will talk all day long, but not for a camera.
Yeah. My oldest is 19. And I mean, I say this about all my kids. I felt like when I had the kids, I had so much wisdom to impart on them and I was going to teach them all these things. And really it's them that have taught me and all the things that I've learned. But some of the views that my 19-year-old has, I'm trying to be very understanding and look at it from her perspective. But sometimes I'm like, no, we're not doing it. That's not going to fly.
No, I hear you. I think I have to ask Olivia, I'm curious to see, like, after being on the podcast because we've been doing it a little bit over a year now, is the way she thinks about things or the way she says things, is it different now because she's thinking about it not just inside her head, but she's saying it all out loud all the time, right? So be interesting to, when I call her later, I'll ask her that question.
Yeah. Has there been a moment on the podcast where either one of you are like, oh, I shouldn't have said that?
No, because I'm really big on being authentic. And I know that's like an overused word, but we do say ridiculous stuff. We swear on camera. We talk about, she has Crohn's disease. So we talk about that all the time. She's like, well, today was not a good day. Didn't make it all the way home, but she's willing to talk about it in a way that she's empowered. So for her, it's not like, okay, everything's embarrassing in the moment, but in the whole scheme of things, you're like, okay, that was ridiculous. And here, let's talk about it.
Sure. No, I love that. That's awesome. And then what you talked about a second book. Is your second book going to be more of like self-help? Is it going to talk about other experiences that you've had?
Yes. And so it is another self-help book. It's really based around the real method that I created. And it's about bold confidence, really building unshakable confidence from the inside out and understanding that everything we go through, leads us to this moment in time, and that it doesn't matter what our past was. It's learning from that and where we are now and how we want to move forward in the future.
I love that. So one thing that you would share with maybe a woman, a mom, anyone that's just sort of, starting on this journey, but they're just at the bottom of their confidence, what would you tell them?
Really do something that you think you can't, whatever it is. I challenge people to think about what's their Kilimanjaro. What's one thing that would kind of get them out of their shell? Something, run a 5K, write a blog post, record a video, anything that is something that you thought about doing that really would help you realize that you're capable of anything you put your mind to. I mean, I'm not going to be an astronaut tomorrow, but I think it's so important that we challenge ourselves, we keep moving forward, and we don't look back with regret. We look back and learn from it so that we can make tomorrow even better.
I love that. So on this podcast, we do leave a question for the next guest, even though you don't know who the guest would be. What would your question be to them?
What was their biggest struggle and how did they overcome it?
I like that. And so what would you say yours was?
Yeah, I think my biggest struggle was literally going back to that time in high school and really letting someone else dictate my whole life, right? I mean, I remember being at dinner with him and I was really skinny back then. And he said to me, "You're getting fat. You need to have a salad." And so I had a salad, no dressing. And I wish I would have had the chicken wings with blue cheese because that's what I really wanted, right?
Sure.
And so how I overcame it, I mean, it took years. It took years of not realizing what I needed and trying to put on this facade of that I am super tough and I don't cry. And what I needed was a reality check to say, you need to confront this. You need to talk about it. And I mean, I've always told my kids about what happened, but I never really talked about it publicly because there is that part that you feel shameful. Like, why couldn't I get myself out of this? And so, overcoming it really took putting myself in a position that I was doing things that I didn't think I was capable of. And once I realized I was capable of those things, I could do more and more and more. And that's why I love saying to women, do the things you think you can't, because that's where the biggest growth happens.
That's a great mantra. I do love that very much. And where can anybody find you if they're looking for your real method and all of that?
Yeah, my website, I'm actually redoing it. So when this comes out, it will be brand new. And so my SimoneKnego.com and SimoneKnego. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and I would love to hear from you. If you have questions for me, I am always there to help.
Yeah, 100%. You've been absolutely wonderful, Simone. I loved hearing your story and everything that you had to offer. So would love to have you on again when your new book comes out.
Thank you. I would love that. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks again for coming on Everything's Messy.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to Everything's Messy podcast. If you enjoyed the mess you heard here today, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review or maybe a follow, I will even take a messy comment, or otherwise, that would be awesome. Social media is where you can find me. I am on Instagram and Facebook at Everything's Messy Wellness. Website is at everythingsmessy.com. Email at sarah@everythingsmessy.com. Reach out. Let me know what you think of the mess. I welcome any and all feedback. If you think you have a messy story and you would like to be a guest on my show, you can find the guest form on the website. Thanks again for listening to Everything's Messy podcast, and keep it messy.